The man discovers that even after dying for 15 years he is still revered by thousands. But his soul has been reborn into the body of a weak young man. Suddenly a piece of chalk flies toward him. Li Yunxiao, how dare you sleep during my class? Tell me how many methods are there to refine ordinary xuanbing? I stared at the teacher with intense focus. This young lady has such a stunning figure. If she were wearing a flame battle robe, she would look exactly like the Red Lotus War Emperor. But unfortunately she's just a martial king at the Four Symbols stage. She's too weak. Luo Yunsheng was startled by my gaze. But she quickly regained her composure and said sternly, "Didn't you hear my question? How many methods are there to refine xuanbing?" I nonchalantly scratched my ear. Such a stupid question. Of course there are 48. As soon as I said this the entire room burst into laughter. Haha, this guy is really delivering as expected. He truly lives up to the reputation of being the useless young master of the Li family. Look carefully. Lord Yangdi's textbook clearly says there are only 36 methods. Upon hearing this I couldn't help but laugh. That brat Yangdi. Did he forget the 12 methods his own master Jiu Feiyang created? While the classmates were laughing thinking I must have been too sleepy. Rambling nonsense. Luo Yunsheng on stage however was shocked and widened her eyes. Then she slammed her hand on the desk. Everyone shut up. What he said is correct. Lord Yangdi's master Jiu Feiyang is not only ranked 3rd among the martial artists of Tianwu continent, but also a 9th grade great master refiner. He indeed created 12 unique refining methods, but they were too advanced so they weren't included in the book. As soon as this was said the entire room was in an uproar. Only Luo Yunsheng was secretly shocked. Li Yunxiao is known as a martial arts failure. Could he have a special talent in refining techniques? Thinking of this she continued to test him. Adding sky crystal silk during refining makes the materials easier to blend. So I ask you, why do some refinings fail when sky crystal silk is added? I replied indifferently. Sky crystal silk is water-based. If added to a fire-based refinement it will backfire. As soon as these words were said Luo Yunsheng suddenly realized. Then, let me ask you again. When refining brilliant gold, how do you eliminate the effect of sky crystal silk? So stupid. You treat sky crystal silk as an impurity, and then use refining essence to remove it, right? How is this possible? The refining issue that had troubled her for so long was unexpectedly solved by a so-called waste. At this point she lost all interest in teaching. After saying self-study she hurriedly ran out the door. Seeing this I didn't stay any longer. I went alone to the busiest street in the city center, the capital of Tianshui Kingdom, where that foolish disciple Yangdi was born. By the way, this statue must have been sculpted by him for me. At least that kid still has a bit of conscience. Thinking of this I decisively went to the Refiners Guild. This body after my rebirth is truly too weak. I haven't even opened a single meridian, so the most urgent task now is to find Yangdi and have him refine my physique. If all goes well, I should recover my strength within 10 years. At that time with the experience of 2 lifetimes, Li Yunlei will definitely break through that final barrier. However, when I entered the Refiners Guild, I was told that Yangdi had resigned as president 20 years ago. Seeing this I could only write down a list, and have the receptionist help me search for the materials on it. Unexpectedly a shout came from behind. Are you free right now? You have the time to help some random people look for materials. After saying this he crumpled the list into a ball and threw it away. What kind of nonsense is written on this list? It's completely nonsense. Seeing this I immediately became furious. Could casually write a prescription that's priceless. But now a first-level refiner is treating it as scrap paper. However, just as Jia Rong was about to leave, my voice suddenly came from behind him. Master Jia must have just taken the refiner's assessment, right? I see your fingers are dark and peeling. Clearly you used Yin Windstone to forcibly increase your fusion ability. But the mistake you made was continuing to use Blood Flame Orchid to counteract the side effects. Because once the two come into contact it will produce deadly poison. You must be feeling unbearable pain in the Tianshou and Meichang acupoints around noon recently. Now to save your life, you might have to chop off your right hand and self-destruct your dantian. I'm afraid the only option is to cut off your right hand and ruin your dantian. Jia Rong, who was struck at the core, trembled and slowly turned around. He immediately grabbed my shoulders and shook me vigorously. Hurry, quickly tell me the solution. Otherwise you won't be able to leave here. But when he locked eyes with the person in front of him, he immediately withdrew his hand as if he had seen a ghost. What is going on here? Just a glance from him nearly made me lose control. Then Jia Rong completely disregarded his pride. He bowed 90 degrees and begged me earnestly. I, a small person, failed to recognize the mountain. Please my lord, forgive my past mistakes and tell me the way to resolve this. I gave him a cold look. Where is my list of materials? Hearing this, Jia Rong immediately picked up the prescription and handed it to me with both hands. The next second I unexpectedly blew a huge snot out while holding the prescription. Then I rolled it into a ball and threw it at Jia Rong's face. Remember this, my name is Li Yunxiao. Once you've gathered 10 of each material on this list, come find me at Jia Lan Academy. as I looked at the domineering young man in front of me. Jia Rong was so frightened that he trembled all over. It wasn't until I walked far away that he slowly regained his composure. Damn it, I was actually intimidated by a little brat. I'll let you enjoy yourself for a few more days. Once I get the antidote I'll make sure you wish you were dead. Meanwhile in the room of second-level alchemist Liang Wenyu, the receptionist explained what had just happened. Based on memory he recited the materials listed on the prescription. After reading it Liang Wenyu couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. Because some of the herbs listed even he had never heard of. But his intuition told him that this prescription would definitely create an extraordinary elixir. With that in mind he immediately instructed the receptionist, "If you see that young man again be sure to notify me right away." On the other side after I left the guild, I noticed the spatial ring the original owner was wearing. My surprise aside from a heavy sword that was somewhat useful. Everything else inside was utterly worthless. This thing looks fairly sturdy. I'll just make do with it until I've opened up 7 more meridians. I then hoisted the heavy sword and headed towards the academy. However just as I arrived at the main gate, I was blocked by 2 figures. It was Du Feng and Luo Jia, 2 of Lan Fei's lackeys. "Li Yanxiao, you've been quite the show-off in class today. Looks like it's time for us to teach you a lesson on behalf of Boss Lan." Seeing this my gaze turned cold and I was about to say something, but was suddenly shielded by 2 of my good friends. "Du Feng, Luo Jia, you're really going too far. If you have the guts, fight us." As soon as the words were out of my mouth the 2 of them charged forward together. Then they both threw a powerful punch. After separating the fat one rubbed his hand and said, "Both of us have the strength of 4 meridians. Did you really think I'd be afraid of you?" But just at that moment, a figure suddenly rushed out from the side. It then collided with the fat one again. With a snap, the fat one's handbone shattered on impact. The fat one flew several meters backward before finally stopping. "Sorry about that. I accidentally used too much force. I just wanted you to feel the difference between 4 and 5 meridians." As the 2 of them smiled and approached me again, a graceful figure suddenly blocked their way. It was Princess Qin Rushui of the Tianshui Kingdom. "If anyone dares to bully Li Yanxiao again, they will be my enemy Qin Rushui." Seeing the princess stepping in personally, they had no choice but to turn around and leave. But at that moment I suddenly shouted, "Hey, did I say you could leave?" Then I slowly walked forward with my sword. "I don't mean anything else. I just want you to feel the difference between 0 meridians and 5 meridians." Luo Feng was about to take action but Du Feng stopped him. "Dealing with scum like you," he said before turning into a blur and charging toward me at high speed. But just as everyone thought I was doomed, a piercing scream suddenly echoed through the air. I saw Du Feng's palm was just 2 inches from my face. But my lower body swiftly kicked him, striking his vital spot. The excruciating pain made him almost faint. He curled up on the ground twitching uncontrollably. Seeing this Luo Feng immediately exploded in rage. He swung his fists at me with lightning speed, while shouting that he would avenge Du Feng. The fat one and Shen Zhen rushed to help, but I calmly crossed my heavy sword in front of me. The next moment there was a thud. Luo Jia's fist landed right on the blade of my sword. The searing pain twisted his face in agony, but I had no intention of letting him go. I immediately followed up with another painful kick. In that moment he felt like he had lost the most important thing. He and Du Feng became the most eye-catching guys on the street. At this moment the onlookers were completely stunned. Li Yanxiao is really lucky, isn't he? He managed to defeat 2 top experts with 0 meridians. I then slammed my heavy sword into the ground. What a joke. If I can't even deal with a few martial students, I might as well just crash into a wall and die. When I got back to the dormitory, I immediately struck a strange posture. It will probably take another 3 days to complete the collection. I can make good use of this time to refine my body and muscles. And that technique called the strongest martial emperor Ao Chong Kong's secret skill. The Beishan body refining technique. At this moment it existed within my soul. In my previous life I accidentally obtained the original cultivation method, but before I could practice it I died. Now let me see what makes this supreme and powerful Beishan body refining technique so special. Let's see what makes it so remarkable. But as soon as I struck the starting posture, my whole body felt like it was being torn apart with unbearable pain. This is truly abnormal. Just entering it nearly knocked me out from the pain. But I'm one of the top 10 martial emperors ranked 3rd. How could I possibly be intimidated by such a mere technique? The next second I heard a huge bang. The first move of the Beishan body refining technique, Moon Sun. I barely managed to execute it, but at that moment my entire body's bones let out a series of mournful cries. Immediately after I was thrown several meters away by a tremendous force. As I stabilized myself I couldn't help but marvel. I never expected this technique to be so overbearing, but since that bastard Ao Chong Kong could practice it, Li Yanxiao will never lose to him. Thinking of this I immediately felt pumped up as if injected with adrenaline. No matter how many times I fall, I will get back up and continue training. Moon Sun. Again, a day passed like this. My body after repeated refining had become much sturdier than before. I decisively went to the 10 times gravity chamber for enhanced training. But as I looked at the overcrowded room I couldn't help but frown. If I have to stand in line here, I would have to wait until the year of the monkey or the month of the horse. Thinking of this I immediately activated my spiritual sense to scan. I quickly discovered that the person in room 13 was about to come out. I then quickened my pace and headed there. When I reached the door, person inside had just opened the door. The surrounding students immediately started whispering, "This guy's luck is incredible. But it seems like he hasn't even unlocked his meridians. Isn't going in like that just asking for death?" I didn't pay any attention to their mockery, because what mattered most to me right now was to quickly master the moon-sun form. However, just as I was about to walk into the room, I was stopped by an arm blocking my path. I am Yu Hejung, a peak martial disciple of the 7 meridians. I wonder if the young brother could show some respect and give me this room? However, to my surprise I didn't buy it at all. FK off. Get lost. Yu Hejung thought he heard wrong and spoke again. Young brother, you must be new here, maybe you haven't heard of my reputation. If you could show me some respect today, I'll take care of you in the academy in the future. I glanced at him impatiently. FKU. Get lost. Get lost. These words are for you. Get out. Yu Hejung was so furious that he threw his head back and laughed wildly. Good. Waste who doesn't even have any yuan power dares to act so arrogantly. Then let me teach you today how a freshman should speak to a senior. The students who witnessed this immediately started whispering. Yu Hejung is an established powerhouse in the academy. His strength is at the peak of the 7 meridians martial disciple realm. It seems like this freshman is in for trouble today, but I on the other hand completely ignored him. I walked straight towards the gravity room without looking back. Yu Hejung could not take this insult. He immediately erupted in fury and used his secret technique Tiger Roar Fist to attack me. You little brat, since you're seeking death, don't blame me for being merciless. To this I simply shifted my stance, and immediately assumed the most basic defensive posture. Yet the pressure I emitted was as if a giant deep-sea monster was shaking his very soul. Yu Hejung was instantly stunned. Although the two of us hadn't truly collided yet, he felt as if he were a lamb walking into the tiger's den. And just as he feared, just as we were about to make contact, I suddenly moved and locked his arm tightly. Then I violently drove my shoulder into his. The immense force sent him staggering back several meters before he regained his balance. Meanwhile I sighed helplessly. Sigh, this body really is too weak. Otherwise that strike just now should have been enough to defeat him. Yu Hejung rubbed his shoulder, secretly shocked. What's wrong with this kid? He doesn't have any yuan power, yet he easily countered my attack. At that moment footsteps approached from behind. Lan Duo, give me 2.5 more minutes. I'll make sure to get you the gravity room. But the girl didn't respond to him. Instead she turned her gaze toward me. Li Yanxiao, I didn't expect you'd start practicing body forging techniques. You're really putting in a lot of effort to chase after me. But without yuan power such skills are just for show. So, I advise you to stop wasting your time. I froze for a moment upon hearing this. Then I quickly reviewed the original owner's memories and understood. It turned out that Lan Duo was the original owner's crush. However, on the day he confessed he was humiliated, she publicly declared that unless he could defeat her one day, she would never consider dating him. With this in mind I smiled at Lan Duo. You're right, I'm indeed a worthless person. So please don't disturb me while I'm training. After saying this I slammed the door shut with a loud bang, leaving the two of them frozen in place. I entered the gravity room. 2 mannequins made of Zan iron appeared before me. From the marks left on them it was clear that countless strong warriors had trained here, sweating and striving. And today Li Yanxiao is here to to use 10 times the gravity and the sky-slaying body refining technique to break through my stagnant meridians. Come on, let's see who's tougher, you or my fists. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. When I walked out of the gravity room again, everyone was startled by my appearance. At that moment my clothes were already in tatters, but there was a glimmer of sharp light in my eyes. The crowd watched in shock as I walked toward the exit. Is he the new student who defeated Li Yanxiao to pursue Lan Duo? This guy really is ruthless to himself. At this moment a shocked exclamation was heard. What? How is that possible? Everyone hurried to the door and looked inside. They then discovered the Zan iron mannequin, harder than diamond, had already been smashed into pieces on the ground. The students gasped in shock. Our school is about to have a monster. Meanwhile, when I returned to the dorm I was surprised to find that my body, which had been covered in injuries before, at this moment my body had completely recovered to its original state. This overlord body refining technique truly deserves to be called the #1 body refining method in the world. It's even better than the effect of using a level 9 spirit medicine to cleanse the body. Just then the fat guy suddenly rushed into the room in a panic. Young Master Yun, run. Lan Fei just officially entered the Yuan level warrior realm. Now he's coming to take revenge on you with his people. Saying that he swiftly darted to the door. Young Master Yun, I can't stay here any longer. Remember to escape quickly. Before he could finish, the door was blasted into pieces with a loud bang. The fat guy was knocked unconscious by the kick. Then another figure flew in. It was Chen Zhen, whose face was completely beaten up. The next second a group of people walked in grandly. Li Yanxiao, the one who dared to touch Lan Fei. Today I will completely ruin you. Hearing this, my face instantly darkened. Ruin me? I really haven't heard such arrogant words in a long time. The next second, a vast aura suddenly erupted from my body. Lan Fei was instantly startled, because he suddenly felt an inexplicable fear in his heart. Was as if he didn't act now, he would forever lose the courage to strike. Thinking of this, he decisively charged at me with his sword. This is absolutely ridiculous. How could a useless trash affect my mind? Seeing this, I slightly raised the corner of my mouth. Not bad. You're decisive and efficient. No wonder you managed to reach the warrior realm at such a young age. The next second the two swords clashed with a loud bang. The immense force caused me to stagger backward. Even the sword blade cracked with a gap. But Lan Fei's face was filled with disbelief, because he had clearly used all his strength just now. Yet he was blocked by a trash who didn't even have a meridian. As for me, I became even more excited. This is so satisfying. Although this body is worse than a dog, the feeling of fighting head-on is truly refreshing. As a young prodigy, when has Lan Fei ever been looked down upon like this? Li Yanxiao, you truly deserve to die. The next second I saw him suddenly pointing his sword at the void. Dark red energy gathered at the tip of the sword like a flowing river. The little brothers were moved to tears. It's actually the Lan family's inherited martial technique, the flowing cloud sword technique. That kid is as good as dead now. However, looking at the blood-red meteor speeding towards me, I couldn't help but snort coldly. It's all show, nothing more. The flowing cloud sword technique focuses on the sword being as free-flowing as clouds. Smooth and unobstructed. If you hadn't shouted it out, I would have thought you were holding a glowing candle. As I spoke, my giant sword let out a loud roar. Then I sharply pointed forward. It sent Lan Fei's long sword flying through the air. The little brothers were stunned by this scene. Lan Fei stood frozen in complete despair. Just now he had clearly only made a simple thrust. But why did it make me feel so helpless to resist? However, before Lan Fei could think more, a big foot-size 48 landed squarely on his face. The enormous force slammed him into the wall. After getting up, Lan Fei fell into deep self-doubt. But at that moment a giant sword fell from the sky again. The sharp blade was only 001 cm from Xiao Kun Kun. Now then, tell me what value you bring to me. If you can't satisfy me, I can't guarantee my hand won't suddenly tremble. To protect the Lan family's legacy, Lan Fei, who had been arrogant earlier, started begging for mercy. No, I have money. I'll give it all to you. After a while, a mountain of gold and silver treasures piled up. But my gaze turned to a jade pendant on Lan Fei's waist. Hand it over. Lan Fei felt a sharp pain in his heart, because this pendant symbolized his identity as a core member of the Lan family's guardians. There were only 5 of these in the entire family, but in order to protect Kun Kun, he had no choice but to swallow the words he was about to say. He then left the mansion with his little brothers dejected. After confirming they had left, I picked up the jade pendant and carefully examined it. It's definitely not wrong. It's actually 5-colored sky stone. As long as I can refine it into that thing, my chances of unblocking my meridians will improve even more. At that moment a figure flew down from the rooftop. It was Jia Rong from the Alchemist Guild. Although he had only collected 6 types of medicinal herbs in 3 days, I still generously gave him the antidote recipe. After seeing the recipe, Jia Rong was so surprised that his mouth nearly became a right-angled trapezoid. Because the intricacy of this recipe had far exceeded his imagination. Just as he was about to leave, I suddenly called him back. This recipe can help you detoxify. But during the time you were poisoned, your soul force should have been severely corroded, right? With your talent, if you want to break through to the first-level alchemist, even with good luck, it'll probably take you another 50 years. Upon hearing this, Jia Rong rushed towards me furious. You little brat, stop talking nonsense. You really think I won't dare to move against you? But to his surprise, in the next moment, vast soul force suddenly erupted from my body. The immense pressure caused Jia Rong to kneel with a loud thud. What? How is this possible? How can this kid's soul force be so powerful? It feels as though he could crush me with just a thought. Suddenly I spoke in a deep voice. Now I'll give you 2 choices. The first is to be my servant for 50 days. The second is death. At this moment Jia Rong couldn't muster any thoughts of resistance. His voice trembled as he spoke. I am willing to be your servant. Upon hearing this, I gently exhaled a breath. Good. I believe that not long from now you will understand just how lucky your decision today was. Saying this, I waved my hand and tossed out another note. However, just as Jia Rong slowly opened the note, he was immediately shocked, his jaw dropping. It's actually the legendary soul refining technique. Alchemists cultivate using soul force as their foundation, and this is a method that can directly refine soul force. It had only been vaguely mentioned in some ancient texts. There's even a mystery as to whether it truly exists. This is why Jia Rong was so excited after seeing the note. With this soul refining technique, he was confident that he could break through to first-level alchemist within 5 days. Thinking this, he immediately bowed to me at a 90-degree angle.